And we are back, or should I say, I am back after a few weeks away. This is the Striker Tejas, definitely your favorite USL podcast, for sure for the Texas teams at least, right? We couldn't be worse than that for anybody, right? Talking about all the teams in USL Championship. I miss you guys so much, and unfortunately, we don't got Joe today, which would be important for him to be here to talk about the victories, important victory that they did. El Paso had over LA Galaxy 2. Never easy game to play at that stadium, empty stadium usually, but it's just crazy how hard it is to play on that place. I don't think Austin teams ever won there, to be honest. We would always come back home disappointed. But anyways, this is the Striker Tejas, part of the Striker Texas, and as usual, go around the room here saying hello. Down 35 to San Antonio. How are you, Jonathan?
Doing all right. Glad that you're back to host us and bring some semblance of order to this podcast. And like I was saying earlier, Edson and I are here. We really missed you. The fact that Joe's not here, well, I think that tells you everything you need to know. No, he has a valid excuse to miss this show in case anyone takes that seriously.
So he was scared of myself. Is that it? When he found out that I was going to be on the show today, he found an excuse. Is that it?
I was just thinking that he was kind of like, again, Edson and I, we missed you. Joe didn't. That was the joke. But I'm sure if Joe could be here, he'd love to be.
I love it. I love it. I love it. And then we go all the way down south on 35 to McAllen. I love your jersey. I got to talk about my jersey also. Fluminense Football Club. It's my heart team from Brazil. 120 years. This is a special jersey. I just came in from Brazil. This is our original crest. So pretty cool, but got a nice Toros jersey there and there. How are you, Edson?
Roberto, doing amazing in these last couple of days. I've actually got looking forward to this weekend. I'm heading over to Fort Worth. I'm heading over to the Dallas area. Saturday, going to go see my Tigres against FC Frisco. And of course, on Sunday, Texas Motor Speedway to the NASCAR race. So definitely looking forward to that. And honestly, I just want to say before we continue, so I really liked that jersey. It's really, really clean, really beautiful. When I was at Texas A&M, I found at Ross a very beautiful, authentic Adidas Fluminense jacket that I really loved wearing. But I don't know what happened. I guess after I moved from over there, it was so hectic. I lost it. I couldn't find it anymore.
I got a ton of Fluminense merch. Not just for the fact that I am a Fluminense fan, but I also had the pleasure to work at the club for a while, and so I have a ton of stuff, which is pretty cool. Had some cool stories. One day we should do a podcast separate from the Striker Test. Some of the cool stories that I have running some of the different teams in South America. So some cool stories. But anyways, we're not here to talk about Fluminense. We're not here to talk about South America. We're here to talk about USL Championship. And I leave you guys for a couple of weeks, and then Wilmer decides to have a winning team. What's going on, Edson?
So I think a lot of it has to do with the how well Fjellberg and Pinzon have clicked, how they've kickstarted the offense. If you notice, most of the goals that they have scored in these last couple of matches, in one way or another, Pinzon or Fjellberg have participated in it. And in a lot of them, both of them participated in a goal. So it not only that, but they've also improved defensively in the mental aspect. This past weekend against Colorado Springs, he mentioned that was their biggest strength right now. Their mental strength and being able to not only limit the amount of mistakes or lack of concentration in these 90 plus minutes, but also adding to that it was only a couple a couple of hours before, let's say the New Mexico match, where they found out that Eric Pimentel wasn't going to play. So you had to bring in Frank Nadarcy. And then in the game against Colorado, you continue to play with Frank Nadarcy and Wahab Akwe with a line of 4, but you play completely different. In previous weeks, you would hear Wilmer Cabrera say, "Oh no, we're here to play our play style. We're not really focused on whatever strengths the other team brings." And I recall every one of us here in the panel, criticizing him. But for this game against Colorado, RGV, instead of being that possession loving team that we're used to seeing them so far this season, they gave the initiative of the ball to Colorado, and they hunkered down and they said, "Come at us, bro." And they closed down the spaces. They limited what Elvis Amo, Mickey and Galena, and Haji Berry, what they could do on offense. And that was really, really the key. Taking advantage, of course, of their desperation and getting some clear shots. However, unlike the game against New Mexico United, where Alex Tambakis was playing, I think, the worst I have seen from him in any games that he's played against the Toros, Jeff Caldwell actually had a decent game, stopping a lot of the opportunities from the Toros when they played the counterattack. In total, Caldwell had 8 saves, right? Then you had some opportunities where Christian Pinzon skied it right in front of goal, unfortunately for him. But everybody clicked so well together that all you needed was that one goal by Jonas Fjellberg early in the first half, and it was just a sense of the Toros were in control of the match. It didn't seem, you couldn't see where you had Colorado actually have a clear shot or a clear opportunity that was going to put Tyler Derrick's goal in danger. And that has been the key. That consistency has been the key in these last couple of matches to give these much crucial victories for the Toros.
We don't care about victories. We don't care about games. That's what people care. We care about what Wilmer has said this week. Is there something that we can laugh about it this week or discuss? Tell me.
So honestly, I think so. I think he's been very, very calm. I don't think he has said anything that's way out of this world. In fact, I think his performances and of his team lately has kind of proven us wrong and doubting him so far in these last couple of weeks. Now, this week, today or yesterday at media availability, he was asked in Spanish about, what was the key of being able to get these games, these victories, and the fact that despite being last a couple of weeks ago and things not clicking well within the squad, that reporter noticed that he was mostly calm most of the time, and so he mentioned that a lot of this, like, he had to kind of be the leader in that aspect and not be desperate in making some desperate moves when it comes to substitutions, to tactics, to trusting his process, his system, that even the ownership group was trusted his system, with the point that he said, in South America, I would have been gone 3 games, 3 games into the losing streak, and I'm very fortunate, and I'm very grateful that the ownership group has placed in trust in my process, in my players, in my coaching abilities, and that he said that has been also one of the keys why he was able to kind of keep his cool and be able to lead this team back into a resurgence.
Very cool. Just a reminder. Again, I've been off maybe for 2 or 3 weeks. I'm not sure how many weeks I was off. And when I left, RGV was maybe second to last or third to last in the conference. The conference looks like now, as we speak now, today's Thursday night. We're recording Thursday night. You most likely are listening to this Friday afternoon, and RGV is playing a couple of hours for you. So this might be a little bit off from what might be reality when people are listening to this. But as of now, RGV is sitting seventh with 39 points in 29 games. So there's still 2 games kind of behind of some of the teams that are sitting above them. So actually a very good position to clinch a playoff spot if things go well, as it has gone the last few weeks while I'm gone. And if RGV loses tomorrow, I'll be off this podcast for several weeks into the playoffs. So we guarantee that RGV makes the playoffs.
Wait. So you're telling me that the hashtag Edson curse has evolved into the hashtag Roberto curse
has come north to Austin. It might be doing Austin.
So one real quick, I did want to say, the fact that the Toros are now in the playoff spot. He did mention we did the hardest part we've already done, getting back into playoff spot when things look bleak. Now we're in a position that we dreamed since the beginning of the season. Now we got to keep it up. We can't make any more mistakes.
And you got the momentum. You got the good vibes in the locker room, most likely, right? You have all of that good thing. So again, RGV sitting 7th, 39 points, 29 games. No, just 4 points behind El Paso, who's sitting 6th. But with 31 games, right? So technically, in points lost, they're tied at this point. And then San Antonio FC sitting first with 67 points, 30 games, which brings me to Jonathan. Jonathan, have San Antonio clinched the Supporters Shield as of now?
SAFC is, as things stand, with 4 games to go, 1 point away from clinching the West. So that's pretty much going to happen, barring
most likely already happened, collapse. Right? If we look at the end of the season, go look back, we're going to see that at this point they already had the necessary points to win it. Most likely, right?
Honestly, like it's 1 point to clinch, and I mean San Diego, Colorado Springs. Well, I think San Diego's the only one that could catch them. 4 or 5 games left. They're probably going to drop a point somewhere in there. Maybe. Yes. You never know. As far as clinching first overall, SAFC would need another 9 points. The most that Louisville City can get is 75, and SAFC is currently at 67. So, so SAFC at 75.
8 points, not 9. 8 points.
Well, yeah, but you want to be 1 ahead just to make sure, because I think if they were on the same point number, then I believe, since they haven't played head-to-head, it would go to goal difference. And Louisville, having the luxury of playing in the East, where half the table is actually decent, and the other half of the table is semi-pro, is
fair.
able to kind of run up their goal difference and stuff. But before the podcast, it's like 10 better than SAFC's.
Yeah, but by the way, a tough statement that you have made, but it's a true one, right? You really look at the East Conference; it has no balance whatsoever, right? It feels very strange, and then I think it makes me grateful that we are on the West Coast. I'm much more like that excitement of, can we make the playoffs? That we're talking about, can RGV, can El Paso make the playoffs? Then already knowing 15 rounds before the end of the regular season if you're going to make the playoffs or not. So which brings me to the game Friday night, right? Tomorrow night. Again, there's a chance that you're listening to this and the game already happened, so I'm sorry for that, but with double game weeks, with midweek games, it makes it very hard for us to find the right spot to record the podcast in a way that makes sense. But RGV is flying to Charleston to play them at 6 p.m. on Friday. And then you see Charleston, they're sitting in 12th on the Eastern Conference, 24 points in 30 games. Man, it should be a wash, this game. What do you think, Edson?
I think I may not be the most veteran person as watching USL Championship, but I think I've learned enough to know that you can't take any rival for granted and brush them off as being easy. we learned that this season with Atlanta United 2, where on paper it looked, that it was going to be a bad offense and a bad defense by Atlanta United, and we barely squeaked out of Atlanta with a win, right? So I think one other thing that was mentioned in press conference was these kind of teams where they don't have anything to lose at this point because they're already eliminated. All you're pretty much doing now is trying to play spoiler for other teams and ruin their chances of making it to the playoffs. Charleston is going to be playing at home. The Toros are going to be traveling over to the East Coast, right? So you also have to add to the factor that these two clubs have never played each other before. So there really isn't a historical aspect or a historical tendency that you can take a look at and say, okay, well, this is probably what's going to happen. Wilmer Cabrera mentioned that there's very little that they know about Charleston to go out of, and he reverted back to saying, well, this in these kind of games, this is where we're the ones that have to establish our dominance through our strengths and not their strengths. So I do think it is feasible for the Toros to get the 3 points, but I think it's also disrespectful to say that this is going to be a walk in the park for RGV.
Fair. All
something
right.
else, before we move on with that, something else to keep in mind, and I think it's going to be interesting in this game. For those who maybe saw Charleston's last game away to Memphis or read Checking on the USL Championship, sort of weekly roundup of USL results, shameless plug there, will know that Charleston had 3 players and their head coach sent off in this last match. So I think it's going to be interesting to see with some of the rotation there, how the team's chemistry looks and everything. And I think it might even be almost a little dangerous because if you get, 3 new players in there, they might see this as their opportunity. Obviously not for the rest of this season, but if they're a fringe guy, are they going to be coming back next year? This could be one of their best cases.
This part of the tournament with those teams, it is really people trying to get contracts for next year, right? So there is a little bit of sometimes extra effort from the players in that sense. So I agree with you guys in some instance. But the next game after that one is going to be San Antonio FC hosting Sacramento, a Sacramento that were 10 minutes away from going to PKs for the Open Cup against Orlando a few weeks ago. That instead of taking the loss and crying, they have won 2 games by 4-0. So coming in a very high, good moment to San Antonio to play this game, man, I could easily say that this is the game of the weekend for USL.
Quite possibly, yeah. 2 of the USL's, more prominent franchises, more noticeable ones. And I think it's also interesting, I'm glad you brought up the form that Sacramento's been in because SAFC, we didn't really touch on their last couple games, but, a 1-1 draw against New Mexico, a 1-0 win against the Switchbacks, and neither was particularly convincing. It was... I don't know. I don't know if I'd say some of the most unconvincing matches you've seen from SAFC this year, but there are certainly things that they need to iron out, and I think a lot of it comes down to just all the injuries in attack right now. I mean, Santiago Patino injured, Justin Dillon injured, somehow for Tuesday, Sam Adeniran injured. It's so thin there at the moment. Someone like Ignacio Bailone has stepped in, sort of started to create the goals, but SAFC has looked fairly strong in a couple of these recent matches, hasn't quite been able to break teams down as much as they should, though, particularly early in matches. And something Alan Marcinez said at practice today was, Sacramento is a very good defensive team. I mean, that came in really handy for that Open Cup run. And them coming to Toyota Field, wouldn't blame them if they wanted to just come in, play defensively, and try and come away with a draw. I mean, they're in a pretty good position, I'd say. All the focus was on the Open Cup run, but they controlled the race for third place if they want.
Yes, yeah, they did. I agree with you, and I don't know if they're going to sit back. I think this for me can like I said, look like a very interesting game to watch on Saturday night. Should be a good one. That's going to be at 7:30 p.m. Remember, reminding everybody, all the USL Championship games are on ESPN Plus, so you can find all those games there, which is pretty cool. Um, and then on Wednesday of next week, 7 p.m., El Paso flies to Tampa Bay. Very difficult game. Tampa Bay is sitting third, 54 points, 29th. So playoff position guaranteed already, right? So not a big deal. Like we said on the East Coast, it's been set in stone for a while, but a very tough game. And to make some fun of Wilmer, since he's doing everything good, is this a game of 6 points, 3 points for El Paso and 3 points for RGV, maybe, right? If El Paso loses that game, it can be can leave you guys in the totals in a good position if they do well in Charleston.
Yeah, definitely. I definitely agree because you're going to be playing if in favor of the fact that you've got two games or less played than El Paso. So the margin of error for El Paso is smaller, right? You're playing against one of the best teams in the Eastern Conference historically since they've been here in the USL Championship, right? So it's going to be pretty difficult. It's rarely known as well how El Paso has kind of been struggling in this latter part of the
I guess
season.
it's strong, especially against strong teams, right? El Paso has struggled against the
Yeah, I
strongest
think
teams this year.
exactly because I think even Joe has mentioned that of all the points that El Paso has so far, I think almost none of them have been from the top teams in any conference. So it's going to be very difficult. The Toros are currently 4 points behind, but if the Toros get the win and El Paso lose, you're down to 1 point. But that also means that El Paso after
Two
that game
games, two
has two
with
games
still two
left,
games. Yeah,
right?
yeah,
So
yeah.
you
Well,
give so much advantage to the Toros.
definitely RGV at this point, after what happened in the last few weeks, is on the driver's seat of their playoff contention now, which is refreshing to even talk about it. If we look, back again 60 days ago, I don't think anybody could believe that this team would be in this situation today, which is very very cool. And again, we like to make fun of Wilmer. We like to say, laugh a little bit with or at him. But congratulations to him. He was really able to, change the narrative on this one, and he might be the one laughing at us at this point. So, but Wilmer, we like you, but we like RGV totals even better. So don't get us wrong. Anyways, all right, 3 games for the Texas teams. I know last week nobody was able to get the 10 points that, yeah, and we almost had a perfect weekend if it was not San Antonio dropping some points with New Mexico. That would have been an amazing thing. But
Mhm.
I am going to with almost, no, I can't even say that. We have 3 games. So again, Charleston playing RGV, San Antonio hosting Sacramento, and then Tampa Bay hosting El Paso. I'm going with 6 points on this one, and pretty clear, playing safe. I'm playing literally safe here, and I'll tell you how I think we're going to get to the 6 points. I do think RGV is going to take those 3 points in Charleston. I do think that San Antonio FC is going to take those 3 points against Sacramento again on a very exciting game. And I doubt it that El Paso can take those 3 points in Tampa Bay. I really don't think so. I'm going with 6 points. Jonathan, your prediction.
Way to make me sound unoriginal. 6 points, and I would predict those exact same results. I mean, logic just dictates it.
Edson.
I'm going to go against the grain. I'm going to go with 4. 4 points. RGV gets the win. San Antonio and Sacramento draw, and El Paso gets the L.
All right. Well, I think it's a fair bet. Also, I don't think it goes uh, too far away from what we just said. Anyways,
I thought about 4 points for what it's worth.
Yeah, four is
Yeah.
it would be again, this is a weekend that can go anywhere. We could be talking here of 0 points, then we could be talking about 9 points. Not nine, but at least seven. But anyways, all right, guys. Before we go, anything else? Anything that we missed from this past week, or from what it's going on out there with the USL, or is it that time for us to just go?
Mm, I think overall it's I think all three markets have been pretty quiet for the most part. I know there was an update, and I don't think we mentioned it last week regarding the Orange County SC dilemma. They did get a 1 year extension, if I'm not mistaken, to the lease at Championship Stadium. So there's at least that little bit of positive news for all of our friends over in Orange County.
Very cool. Yeah, I I have a great admiration for that ownership group, for their management team. I think they're great people. They'll do a great job. I don't think it's going to be too hard for me to say this, but I actually think that they are the ones that have sold more players in terms of monetary revenue in
Speaking
USL
of
Championship.
Speaking of, Damu's actually just scored, I think, this past weekend in Europe.
Yeah. Oh, by the
Yeah,
way, guys, last week the reason I couldn't record with you guys is because I was on the Austin FC game against RSL. It was so good to see our boy, playing for RSL, or El Paso, whatever we want to say. It was so fun. It was so good to see him on the field. I'm talking about Diego Luna. We talked about him many times in this podcast over the past 2 years. So it was so fun, and I was not expecting. I go to the stadium, I start watching the game, and all of a sudden I say, "Oh, is that Luna?" And he looked like a big boy, and that was fun. It felt good. It felt good. All
yeah.
right, guys, say it.
I was just saying it's just good to see our youth going out, climbing that ladder,
And
and
using
that's only
USL
good.
to get there, right? And
Yeah,
using USL to get there. I think, and I'm a true believer that there is a little bit of MLS looks a little bit odd to the USL teams and to the USL players, and I do believe that it's a big mistake, because I think there's very good talent, and I think USL is a perfect place for you to develop and get ready for MLS, and even other leagues. But
and
anyways,
I think this Open Cup proved that.
that's it. And other things. Again, Luna looked like a big boy in the middle of that game. Although RSL was using most of the squad, was the second squad, and there was a lot of reserves playing. But man, he looked like he was comfortable on the field, which was it's very cool to see it. Very cool to see it. Anyways, again, this is the Striker Tejas, a part of the Striker Texas. Don't forget, we can only do what we do. The podcast is free. The podcast it's all there for you. But remember to follow us on social media. Follow the Striker Texas the Striker Soccer News. I still do that.
There you go. You got it that
That's
time.
it. That's it. The Striker on social media. Remember to subscribe. For less than a coffee from a coffee shop or a beer on a brewery, you can have the best quality soccer news coverage of the local teams in California, Texas, and in Atlanta, and hopefully soon in other markets. So as always, we say, don't forget, support local soccer. Thank you.